The wind cut through the asteroid like a knife, howling around the frozen towers of the dragon orphanage. Ice hung from every ledge and the ground was hard and brittle underfoot. Inside, the young dragons huddled together, their small wings folded tightly against their bodies. Their scales, once bright and colorful, were dull and frosted over. The warmth of life had long left this place. They did not fight, did not laugh, did not even speak. The orphanage was silent, except for the soft tapping of claws against stone. Ravix, the oldest of the young dragons, sat apart from the others. His eyes, sharp and wary, scanned the empty halls. He remembered stories from older dragons, tales of humans who had once brought ruin to their kind. Trust did not come easily. He lifted his head and let out a low hiss, warning any intruder that they would not be welcomed. Around him, the younger dragons flinched at every sound. The cold was all they knew, and fear was the only warmth left in their hearts. A shadow moved outside the broken window. The dragons stiffened. They could sense a presence, something unfamiliar. Through the frost, a small hovercraft descended, its lights cutting through the gray sky. It landed with a soft hum and a human stepped out. His boots crunched on the frozen ground, but he moved carefully, like he did not want to disturb anything. He was tall, with a leather coat and gloves covered in tools. His eyes were bright with curiosity, not fear, not malice. "Hello," he called softly, unsure if the dragons could even hear him. His voice was calm, gentle. He held out a small metal device that glowed with a warm orange light. The dragons watched from the shadows, their tails flicking nervously. They had not seen a human in centuries, and most dragons did not believe humans could ever be kind. The human took a cautious step closer, his gaze scanning the hall. "I am Elier," he said. "I want to help." A hiss answered him. Ravix stepped forward, wings half open, his teeth glinting in the dim light. "Help," he growled. "Humans do not help. Humans take. Go away." Elier held his hands up, showing he meant no harm. "I will not hurt you," he said. "I have tools. I can fix this place. I can bring warmth." Warmth. The word echoed strangely in the cold halls. The young dragons tilted their heads. They had not felt warmth in years. Not fire, not sunlight, not even a friendly touch. They did not know it existed anymore. They had only each other, and even that bond was weak from hunger and cold. Ravix narrowed his eyes. "We do not want warmth. We do not want humans. Leave." Elier did not move back. He kneeled on the ice, careful not to make sudden moves. He set his glowing device on the floor, letting its light spread slowly. The young dragons crept closer, drawn by the soft glow. It reminded them of the small fires their mothers had once made before the orphanage was abandoned. The air felt a little lighter and their wings twitched with curiosity. Elier smiled faintly. "I can make more than this," he said. "I can make a place where you can fly without freezing. I can make the halls warm, the water flowing, the magic alive again." Ravix hissed again, but he did not move forward. His tail lashed nervously. Deep down he remembered warmth. He remembered flying under the sun, feeling it on his scales. He remembered the smell of melted snow and firewood. But that memory hurt more than it healed, because it reminded him of all they had lost. He did not want to hope. Hope could be dangerous. The younger dragons crept closer, their eyes wide. One small dragon, barely larger than a fox, stepped forward and touched the glowing device with his claw. A shiver ran through him, but it was not cold. It was strange and soft. He looked up at Elier with wide, trusting eyes. The human nodded at him. "It's okay," he said. "You can touch it. You can feel warmth without fear." Ravix growled low in his throat, warning the small dragon, but he did not stop him. Part of him wanted to push the human away, but another part, the part he had buried deep inside, wanted to see if warmth could really exist again. He lowered his wings slightly and studied Elier. The human did not flinch under his gaze. He did not tremble or beg. He just stayed there, patient, waiting for trust to grow. Outside, the wind continued to howl, but inside, the halls were quiet. The glow from the device spread across the ice, making it shine like liquid gold. For the first time in decades, the dragons felt something new. It was small, fragile, and easily scared, but it was there. A tiny spark of hope. Elier smiled, seeing the change in their eyes. He knew it would not be easy. Dragons had long memories and sharper instincts. They would test him, push him away, maybe even attack. But he also knew that if they could feel warmth once, they could feel it again. And if warmth could return, maybe trust could too. For now, that was enough. The human knelt there on the ice, letting the dragons come closer at their own pace. The youngest curled up near the glow, eyes half closed, scales beginning to gleam faintly. Ravix watched, silent, uncertain. But even he could not hide the flicker of curiosity in his golden eyes. And for the first time in a long time, the orphanage did not feel completely empty. Elier spent the next morning walking through the frozen halls of the orphanage. Every corner he turned, he saw broken pipes, cracked stone floors, and magical wards that barely worked. The dragons followed him silently at first, keeping their distance. Some hid in shadows, watching him with wide eyes. Ravix stayed in the center of the room, wings slightly open, still unsure what to make of this human. "I can fix this," Elier said softly, kneeling to inspect a broken water pipe. He pulled out a small tool from his belt and tapped on the metal. Sparks flew and the ice inside the pipe began to melt. "If I can get water flowing again, it will help you stay warm," he added. One of the small dragons, the little one who had touched the glowing device yesterday, crept closer. His eyes followed every movement. He chirped softly, a sound that had not been heard in the orphanage for years. Elier smiled at him. "I promise this will be okay," he said. The little dragon tilted his head, unsure, but stayed nearby. Ravix hissed quietly. "You think you can fix us? You cannot fix the cold inside our hearts." His voice was sharp, but Elier did not flinch. "I am not here to change your heart," Elier said gently. "I just want to make the orphanage safe. You will choose how to feel." The dragons watched as Elier set up small devices along the walls. They hummed with soft energy, pushing warmth into the room. The ice under their claws began to melt slightly. The glow from the devices made the halls look brighter. A strange smell of warmth filled the air, like sunlight and melted snow mixed together. "Why do you care?" asked Ravix after a long silence. "Humans have always been our enemies. Why are you helping?" Elier paused, wiping his hands on his coat. "Because I believe you deserve better. Because warmth should not belong to humans alone. It is for everyone." The dragons did not answer. Some of the younger ones tilted their heads, curious but still cautious. They had not heard words like that before. Trust was a foreign language. Over the next few days, Elier worked tirelessly. He repaired broken water pipes, fixed small heaters, and replaced shattered glass in the windows. He built simple devices to amplify dragon magic, so the dragons could use their fire without freezing themselves. Slowly, the halls of the orphanage began to feel less empty, less dead. The young dragons began to notice changes. The little one ran through the halls, sliding on the smooth floors, testing the warmth. His laughter, soft but real, echoed faintly. Another dragon curled up near a heater, feeling the heat soak into his scales. It was strange, but it was nice. Ravix watched from his perch above, wings folded tight. He did not move closer. He did not laugh or make a sound. But he felt something he had not felt in a long time. It was not fear. It was not anger. It was curiosity. One evening, Elier lit a small fire using both dragon magic and his tools. The flames danced, casting shadows on the walls. The young dragons gathered cautiously around it. Their claws hovered near the fire, feeling the warmth without touching it. The fire did not burn, but it made their scales tingle in a good way. "It is safe," Elier said, kneeling by the flames. "You can come closer. You can feel it without fear." The little dragon stepped forward, pressing one claw near the flames. A soft glow reflected in his eyes. The warmth spread through his body, and for the first time he felt something more than cold and hunger. He chirped again, this time happily. Ravix growled low in his throat, warning the little one to be careful. But he did not stop him. Something inside Ravix was shifting, slowly but surely. The memories of past warmth, of days under the sun, of fire licking the sky, returned. He had buried those memories because they hurt, but now, watching the little dragon feel warmth, he could not ignore them. Elier worked late into the night, adjusting devices, repairing broken magic wards, and making sure the flames did not harm the dragons. He spoke softly to them, telling them about the machines he had built, the ways they could make life easier, the ways warmth could come to the orphanage without danger. The dragons listened. Some closer, some farther away. They were still cautious, but the spark of trust had been lit. Outside, the asteroid wind howled, but inside, the orphanage was alive. Ice melted, pipes ran with water, and warmth spread slowly through every hall. Dragons curled up together for the first time in decades, sharing not just heat, but a feeling they had almost forgotten: safety. Ravix remained apart, watching the fire. His golden eyes flickered with thought. The human had done many things already, but the greatest thing he had done was simple. He had shown that warmth could exist here, in a place where dragons had given up. Perhaps humans were not always enemies. Perhaps they could be friends. Perhaps, trust was possible. Elior looked around the hall, smiling faintly. He did not force the dragons. He let them come at their own pace. One by one they tested the warmth, curled near the fires, and allowed themselves to feel something they had long denied: hope. For the first time the orphanage did not feel completely empty. The walls echoed with life again. And even Ravix, silent and watchful, could not deny the faint, flickering warmth that had begun to fill his heart. Elior spent the next few days studying the orphanage carefully. He walked through every hall, every room, and even the small tunnels beneath the building. The dragons followed at a distance, curious but wary. Ravix watched from above, wings folded tight, golden eyes tracking every movement. He still did not trust the human, but he could feel the warmth spreading in the halls. It was different from anything he remembered, softer, calmer, and alive in a way that did not hurt. Elior pulled out a set of plans he had drawn during his journey. He spread them on the frozen floor, showing the dragons a design unlike anything they had seen before. "This will be more than warmth," he said softly. "It will be a living hearth. It will give you heat, light, and energy. It will help you fly, grow, and heal." The young dragons tilted their heads. They had never seen anything like this. Machines and fire had always been dangerous. But something in Elior's voice made them pause. It was calm and patient, not demanding, not threatening. Ravix stepped forward, slow and cautious. "You speak of a hearth, but what is it really?" "A trap." His voice was sharp, full of suspicion. "No trap," Elior replied gently. "It is a machine. But it is not just metal and wires. I will combine it with your magic so it works with you, not against you. You will control it. You will choose to use it." The idea made some of the smaller dragons curious. They moved closer to see the papers and devices. One tiny dragon tapped on a drawing of the hearth, and a small glow appeared on the page. The glow spread like sunlight through frost. The young dragons gasped softly, stepping back in surprise. Elior smiled. "See? It responds to you. It will listen to your fire and your magic. It will give warmth only if you allow it." Ravix growled low in his throat, not fully convinced. He studied the human's face. There was no fear in Elior, no hesitation. His calmness irritated Ravix, but it also made him think. Perhaps this human was different. Perhaps he was not like the humans from the stories of old. Elior began assembling pieces of the hearth. Metal rods, glowing crystals, coils of energy, and magical conduits. The dragons watched silently, wings half open, eyes wide. Sparks danced across the metal as Elior worked, but the dragons did not flee. Something inside them told them to stay, to watch, to see if this strange human could really do what he promised. The first night, Elior finished the basic structure of the hearth. It stood in the center of the largest hall, a tall, glowing cylinder with veins of light running through it. He touched it lightly and the warmth spread slowly across the floor. The dragons flinched at first, but the warmth was gentle, soft like the sun on a spring morning. It did not burn. It did not force them to move. It only invited them. The smallest dragon stepped forward, curiosity winning over fear. He pressed a claw to the glowing surface. A shiver ran through him, but it was good. He chirped softly. The warmth spread into his body, and he could feel his wings twitching with new energy. He looked up at Elior, eyes shining. "It is nice," he whispered. Ravix hissed, warning the small dragon, but he did not push him away. Part of him wanted to test the human himself. He approached slowly, circling the hearth, wings brushing the floor. He sniffed the air. It was warm, yes, but there was something else, a strange feeling of safety, of control. He could feel it responding to him, listening, not forcing. Elior knelt by the hearth, speaking softly. "You can touch it. You can test it. You do not have to trust me yet, but you can trust yourself." One by one the dragons inched closer. Their claws hovered over the light, their wings trembling with excitement and fear. The warmth spread, flowing into them like water over stones. They felt their muscles relax, their wings gain strength, and their magic stir gently. It was the first real warmth they had felt in decades, and it made their hearts beat faster. Ravix finally lowered his head and pressed a claw to the hearth. His golden eyes closed as he felt the warmth seep into him. Memories of the past came back, the sunlight on his scales, the laughter of dragons long gone, the fires of the old orphanage. He felt a tear slide down his snout, something he had not done in years. He opened his eyes and looked at Elior, not with fear but with a faint, grudging respect. Elior smiled gently. "You see? It is yours if you want it. No one is forcing you." The dragons began to gather near the hearth. Some curled around it, some touched it lightly, some even played near it, testing their wings and fire. The orphanage no longer felt frozen. The walls shimmered with warmth, the floors no longer bit into their claws, and the air was alive with energy. Outside, the asteroid winds howled, but inside, the hall was calm, bright, and alive. Elier stood quietly watching the dragons. He knew it would not be easy. They would test him again, push him away, maybe even attack him. But tonight, he had done the most important thing. He had given them a choice. And in that choice, the dragons had begun to believe. Ravix curled up near the hearth, silent but alert. The little dragons played around him, their scales glinting in the warm light. The orphanage, long empty and cold, had begun to breathe again. And Elier, the human who had promised warmth, had shown them that even in the coldest places, trust and hope could grow. For the first time in a long time, the dragons felt that maybe, just maybe, they could believe in humans again. The next morning, Elier arrived at the orphanage before sunrise. The halls were quiet but not empty. Small dragons stirred near the hearth he had built, wings stretching and tails flicking. The warmth from yesterday still lingered, soft and inviting, but Elier knew it was only the beginning. Today he would test the hearth's full power. He adjusted the crystals, tapped on the metal veins and spoke softly to the dragons. "I am going to make it stronger," he said. "It will reach every corner of the orphanage. It will help you fly, heal your wings and bring energy to your magic. You can step back if you want, but I promise it will not hurt you." Ravix watched silently from above. His golden eyes narrowed, wary. "Stronger?" he muttered. "And if it burns us? If it traps us? I do not trust you, human." "I do not ask for trust," Elier said calmly. "I ask for patience. Watch first and then decide." He activated the hearth fully. A gentle hum rose from the device, filling the hall. Light flowed through its veins and warmth spread quickly, touching every wall, floor, and ceiling. The ice underfoot began to melt completely, leaving dry stone and patches of soft moss Elier had brought from outside. The dragons hissed softly at first, unsure of this sudden change. The smallest dragon, braver than the rest, stepped forward. His claws hovered just above the hearth's glow. Slowly he pressed one paw down. The warmth spread through his body instantly. His scales gleamed with a golden shine, and his wings twitched with energy. He let out a happy chirp. The other young dragons watched, their curiosity overcoming fear. Ravix did not move at first. He stayed at the back, silent and alert. But then he felt it, an unusual stirring in his body. His wings, stiff from years of cold, flexed instinctively. His tail flicked as the warmth reached him, and he felt his old strength returning. He sniffed the air carefully. The hearth listened. The warmth responded to him, flowing gently, not forcing, not burning. Elier knelt and spoke softly, his voice calm like a river. "It is yours if you want it. No one is forcing anything. You control it with your magic." Ravix growled low, unsure. But curiosity won over suspicion. He stepped closer, claws touching the edge of the glowing hearth. The warmth spread slowly through him, melting not just the cold in his body but something deeper, the long-buried fear of humans, the sorrow of years alone. His golden eyes shimmered with unshed tears. The younger dragons now surrounded the hearth fully. They played gently, brushing against it, letting the warmth flow into their bodies. Some batted at the light with their tails, others curled up together near it. Their laughter, soft and bright, echoed in the once empty halls. For the first time the orphanage felt alive. Outside, the asteroid winds raged, but inside, the warmth flowed evenly. Elier had done more than bring heat. He had brought life. He watched as the dragons began to trust him, not because he demanded it, but because he had proven that he cared, that he would not harm them. Ravix finally lowered himself fully near the hearth. He stretched his wings slowly, flexing the muscles that had long gone unused. He breathed deeply, letting the warmth seep into every scale. Memories of past sunlight and fire flickered in his mind. He felt a mix of sorrow and hope, but for the first time in decades, hope seemed stronger. Elier approached Ravix carefully, kneeling at a respectful distance. "See? You are safe. You can control it," he said softly. Ravix lifted his head, meeting Elier's eyes. There was still caution there, but there was also a spark of understanding. Perhaps humans were not enemies, at least not all humans. Perhaps some could help, could care, could bring warmth to a place that had forgotten it. The other dragons gathered around the hearth. Some curled near the edges, some touched it lightly with claws and snouts. A few began to flap their wings experimentally, feeling the warmth lift them, giving energy to fly again. The orphanage was no longer a prison of cold, it had become a home. Elier watched quietly, pride swelling in his chest. He knew this was only the start. Dragons had long memories and trust was slow to grow. There would be setbacks. Some might still run, some might hide. But tonight he had done the most important thing. He had shown them warmth could exist and that it could be safe. Ravix curled closer to the hearth, letting the warmth fill his body completely. For the first time he felt a strange, unfamiliar sensation. Gratitude. Not just for the heat, but for the human who had built it, who had not given up on them. The small dragons chirped and played, their scales gleaming in the light. The halls of the orphanage were alive with warmth, laughter, and magic. And Elier, the human engineer, knelt in the center of it all, a quiet guardian and friend, knowing that he had taken the first step toward something greater. The orphanage, once cold and lifeless, now glowed with hope. And even Ravix, the oldest and most cautious of the young dragons, could not deny it. For the first time in his life he felt that perhaps humans and dragons could share the same world, and that warmth was not just fire but trust, and trust could change everything. Days passed, and the orphanage was no longer a place of ice and silence. The warmth from Elier's living hearth spread through every hall, through every stone and through every dragon. The small dragons flitted through the rooms, wings beating with energy, claws tapping happily on the once frozen floors. The sound of laughter, chirps, and gentle roars echoed in the halls for the first time in decades. Ravix, once the most cautious and bitter of the dragons, now moved through the halls with a new calmness. His scales glimmered in the soft golden light of the hearth. He flexed his wings, testing the strength that had returned. He still watched Elier closely, but he no longer hissed or snapped. There was a flicker of respect in his eyes and something softer, gratitude. Elier walked quietly among the dragons, checking the devices, adjusting the hearth slightly, making sure the warmth stayed gentle. "How does it feel today?" he asked the small dragon who was curled near the hearth. "It is perfect," the dragon replied softly. "I can feel it everywhere. My wings feel strong again." Elier smiled. "That is because the warmth comes from inside you too. Your magic flows stronger now. You have the choice to use it and it is yours." The dragons chirped, flapped, and nudged each other playfully. For the first time the orphanage felt alive in the way it should have all along. The walls glimmered with soft light, the floors were free of ice, and small patches of moss and plants Elier had brought from the outside grew in hidden corners. It was no longer a cold, lonely place, it was a home. Ravix stood near the hearth looking at the young dragons. I do not remember it being like this before," he admitted quietly. "The warmth, it is not just fire. It is more. It is life." "You are right," Elier said gently. "Warmth is not only fire or heat. It is trust, safety, and care. You can feel it with your body but also with your heart." Ravix lowered his head. He thought of all the years he had spent cold, bitter, and alone. The orphanage had taken so much from him, and yet here was a human who had given something back, something no one had in decades: hope. The young dragons began to gather near the hearth. Some curled around each other, some pressed their claws to the warm light, and some even flapped their wings experimentally, learning to fly again. The energy from the hearth responded to them, pulsing gently, lifting them, strengthening them. Elier knelt beside the largest group, watching their joy. He realized that the orphanage was no longer just a building. It was a place of growth, of healing, of life. And the dragons were not just survivors, they were thriving. Ravix stepped closer to Elier. I did not think humans could do this," he said quietly. "I did not think any human could care for us, for dragons." Elier smiled warmly. "Not all humans are the same. And trust, once given, can grow stronger than fear. You chose to trust the hearth. And that trust made everything possible." Ravix lowered his head and pressed it slightly against the hearth. The warmth flowed into him, soft and steady. He closed his eyes, letting the feeling fill him completely. The years of cold, the mistrust, the pain, all of it seemed to melt away in that golden glow. For the first time he felt safe, cared for, and part of something greater than himself. The small dragons played around him, chirping and laughing. Some even nudged Ravix gently, encouraging him to join their games. He moved slowly at first, unsure, but then flexed his wings and flapped gently. The warmth lifted him, steady and strong. He hovered above the hearth, golden scales shining, feeling alive in a way he had never known. Elier watched, feeling a quiet pride. He had not done this with force or magic alone. He had done it with patience, care, and understanding. The dragons had chosen to trust him, and in that choice they had regained what they had lost. The orphanage now glowed not just with warmth, but with life. The young dragons explored freely, learning to fly again, learning to trust, learning to be happy. Ravik stayed nearby, watching over them, proud and protective. The bond between human and dragons had been formed, strong and unbreakable. Elior stood quietly near the hearth, looking at the scene around him. The orphanage had changed, but more importantly, the dragons had changed. They had learned that warmth was not just heat, it was care, trust, and hope. And humans, at least some humans, could be part of that world. Outside, the asteroid winds continued to blow, harsh and cold. But inside, the orphanage was safe. The dragons were alive, thriving, and warm. And the human who had built the hearth, who had shown patience and kindness, had proved that even in the coldest, most hopeless places, life could return and trust could change everything. Ravix finally lowered himself beside the hearth, letting the warmth fill him completely. He looked at Elior with a quiet understanding. "Thank you," he said softly. Elior smiled. "No, thank you," he replied. "For trusting, for letting warmth back into your hearts." And in that moment, the orphanage was no longer cold. It was alive, full of light, warmth, and hope. The dragons had found life again, and a human had shown them the true meaning of warmth. The hearth glowed, the dragons thrived, and the orphanage had become a home once more. And as long as trust remained, warmth would never leave again.